I think, as you said, we're not copying. I think what is happening is that we get inspired, but if you copied, it wouldn't work in our region. So we always have to invent something that actually fits the markets. So when we were called copycats, I think we were actually just getting inspired, but then building something from the ground up that is totally different. I mean, if I look at what I've been doing in the past year approximately, or year and a half, I have realized that we're going through some phases that every one of us is going through, and that is either you're right or wrong, or you're confident and not confident. These are the two dimensions you can be. And we started when I came here 17 years ago, I was wrong and I was not confident. That's a good place to be because you can only upgrade from there. So over time, as I learned how to build businesses, I was right, but I was still not confident, which is also great because it keeps you humble. The problem arises when you become right and confident. That's when you miss out on the changes, the big changes that are happening around you. And I fight these changes, and I fight this mentality I have, because over the last decade, I felt like I was always right, and I was always confident.
Okay.
But when AI now came in the last 3 years, I realized I was wrong, but still confident. And then you slip into a very dangerous zone where you just don't accept new realities. And today we see, I think if I look at my team and my companies, I think there's going to be, in the next immediate phase, there's just going to be 3 roles left. The roles that own risk, the roles that own revenue, and the roles that are responsible for a physical outcome. Everything else is just going to be replaced by a mechanism that replaces coordination.
One thing is clear, that the next builder of $1 trillion company is coming from emerging markets, Luis. If you look at the regulation, because we are speaking in the context of AI, what is it doing, and how, when we come at that intersection, Luis, founders often see regulation as friction, while governments have their own view, they see it as stability. As someone who is working with governments, trying to understand and managing big tech companies, where is the stable policy?
Well, thank you for the invitation. I think it's a great pleasure to be talking with a very well known in the Middle East entrepreneurship and also in this distinguished audience. Well, I will say that more than the emerging and developed countries or markets, I think that the differences are even country by country, and that's a big problem. We are working exactly in the relationship between the developed countries and emerging markets. In Dapper, we use AI to help global companies, no matter if they are Emirates, Dubai Chamber of Commerce, or if they are Coca-Cola or TikTok for China, or they are General Motors, no matter where they are from, but they are global companies that are operating in larger markets. They are operating in UAE, in Colombia, in Mexico, in Brazil, in Kenya, in Turkey, etc., etc. The problem is those companies don't understand how the emerging markets work. They go to Bloomberg and they know how to go to the States, even France or England, but they have no idea what's the difference between the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or they talk about Brazil, Colombia, Mexico. They think they are more or less the same, and they're not the same. So I think the main goal that we have in the emerging markets is how to reduce that friction between the global companies, the tech company, the big companies, no matter the sectors, and how they operate in a day by day. They don't know how the Congress works. What's the website that they have to go? They have to spend millions of dollars in the headquarters trying to understand. So And I wrap up the question saying the following. Before AI, for instance, when I was in the government of Colombia, being Minister of Planning and Deputy Minister of Finance, and I went to the OECD or IMF event, I had to take, I don't know, 20, 30 people to wrap up all the information, to share the information with my colleagues, the other ministers, or to talk with the IMF and OECD. Today, it was thousands of people, hundreds of people working on that. Today we are 11 guys in a computer. We started a company 1 year ago. 11 guys can take all the information of all this country immediately in seconds. And they can tell to the headquarters of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, or to the headquarters in Emirates, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, every change in the emerging markets in the phone. In the phone, you can have it immediately without having thousands of people working on pages, just designing a RPA or a robot or scrapper that goes to the website, take the information, and send them the information.
Saygin, since you spoke about confidence being perhaps the only constant in this entire journey that you have spoken about, in emerging economies, we have largely seen that people do not have confidence in governments. They may have confidence in platforms. There is that distinction that exists. How do you build a deep, long-term trust then when the broader system is still evolving?
I have confidence in the government. Is there, probably there might be different countries in the emerging markets that have this problem, but here I think every time there is an issue or there is a roadblock, it gets solved. I mean, I can give you real life examples. So whenever we see there is a gap in regulation or there is an issue which touches government, we just go and talk. And one quote that I had from the Dubai economy was, so it was around licensing and permits. And I said, so does this stop our business? And he said, stopping business? In Dubai, we don't stop businesses. I said, oh, that sounds good. So I'll work until I get the permit. So I think I don't see this issue with the government. Obviously, there are different countries in the so-called global south that might have this issue, and I would just encourage them to talk. Because the worst thing an entrepreneur can go through is uncertainty, and if we don't have planability, I think that is the worst thing that could happen. And that made us different when I say us, because I'm from here now, it's 17 years. So I say it's when we went through COVID, we all went through it, the whole world went through it. But I think what Dubai made different was we had a plan. So we said, this is how long you're going to be locked up for. This is when we're going to open up. And that was enough. So I can talk to my vendors, I can talk to my team, I can adjust my business plan. But this uncertainty and not being able to communicate is the worst that could happen for a business and a business leader. So I don't see that issue. And if you have that issue somewhere, please solve it.
So, for entrepreneurs like you, do you see uncertainty also some kind of motivation? Because, the best actions come in adverse opportunities. When there's adversity, that's the best time. Are you following that mantra as well? The old world.
There's a famous matrix, right? So you have the known knowns, the unknown knowns,
and too many
unknowns, and so on. So the worst thing is the unknown unknowns.
Yes.
That's the uncertainty. So if there's things you don't know that you don't know.
Okay. Okay, Luis, startups today scale faster than regulation, infrastructure, and even culture. When growth comes too quickly, what eventually happens, in the sense that what usually breaks first? And how do founders prevent that?
Well, I think the one thing that founders definitely do, and is very different from the government and public officers and even academia. I mean, I used to be a visiting fellow at MIT, and I've been in academia before being in the government and being in tech. But something that is pretty different for those three worlds that I've been already in my life, is the founder, they just do. I mean, they do and they go. And that's pretty amazing, to be honest. In academia, you have to, I don't know, 2 years to run a paper. In the government, you need elections before decide what's going on. And somehow, later you need a plan, you need a leader to grab a 30 years idea. The founders just do things. And I think that's very amazing in this side of the world. For instance, you was talking about Dubai, and to be honest, I'm pretty impressed. It's my second time at WGS, how fast it moved in Dubai, the conversation between the government and the private sector. And not only the global private sector, like we have a huge delegation from Latin America this year and the previous one, and actually we had the first WGAs outside of Dubai last year in Dominican Republic. And they were all amazed by how they were moving from Dubai and how is the ecosystem. I mean, it's not common to have entrepreneurs, government, private sector from big techs in the same room. That's very uncommon. You can see it in a couple of places in the world. And I think in Dubai and the Middle East, you don't see it only in WGS. You see it if you stay a little bit longer, a couple of days more before on later. I came also to GITEX as a speaker, and I was amazed. To be honest, I think you are doing pretty different here in the job, and someone has to do that job to bring together people that are very different. But all of us, no matter if you are in companies, in the private sector, you are in the government, probably we just want to add a little bit in to have a better world. And we have our own problems in emerging markets. I will finish with this question with that. I think and Saygin mentioned it, like we cannot copy because our problems are different, are very different. Just in regulatory affairs, for instance, the number of documents that we issue per day are different than if you go to the States. It's very different that if you take into account Middle East or Latin America or Central America. That's very different. The difference in numbers are hundreds of times. So basically, bringing together the founders and the other two parts that I think are governments with academia is the best way to solve it.
Okay, the supply chains have been disrupted. That has shifted. The geopolitics is also reshaping trade. Are emerging markets then becoming the new center of economic gravity, or still seen as perhaps the next frontier? Saygin, that's a question for you.
We're still the next frontier. I mean, I would be lying if we think we are leading in what we're doing in terms of, if you take the industries I'm in, so there's venture capital, there is startup and tech. We are not leading. So it's clearly that we are still small. But we were much smaller before. So we're growing, and we have to be realistic. We're not going to claim that we're the leaders. The most money flows still in the west side of the US. Most technology is still invented there. So I would also not recommend completely new inventions in tech if we don't have the patient and abundant capital for it. Capital has grown in the Middle East tech sector significantly, 10x. But it's still a tiny portion of what is flowing generally, globally. And we don't even have to say globally, it's just US and China. That's where the money and market is. So we're still small, but we're growing.
Baby steps? Or giant leaps?
I don't know how small the baby is, but 1%? 1% of a grown adult? That's a fetus.
So let's have more future-looking response from both of you. Looking forward to 2035, will success for the Global South mean catching up with the best, with the West, or defining an entirely different model of prosperity? This is to both of you. Please go ahead.
I don't think we'll go for, we have to, the successful should be measuring if we solve our problems. I mean, no, their problem, and that's my difference in your last opinion, that is, even we are not large enough in some, I don't know, in deep tech or in the frontier of LLM discussion and these kind of things, our problems are different. So let's solve our problems. Our problems, there are no solving ours. I mean, if you take Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and you ask today to all of them, what's going on today in the Congress of Mexico or in the government and in the Ministry of AI in UAE, they're going to start hallucinating, like saying whatever they want. I mean, because they weren't designed to solve that problem, to answer that questions. So our successful definitely is going to be if we keep ourselves working our problem. I think we have big steps in that. You have Talabat here, is in the next one panel. We have Rappi in Latin America. It wasn't DoorDash 10 years ago, 20, 50 years ago. When we have a problem, drink beverages, Coke go everywhere. The same company goes everywhere. That was before technology. Now we can have our own company. Even 10 years ago, probably you didn't have sell any car in Dubai. You will have, I don't know, someone from the States opening a company here with the same logo, with the same name, trying to solve a very different problem in the Middle East with the view, with the capital. Probably they have more capital than that. They have abundant capital, but they have a different way to solve it. So I think we have our successful is going to be measured in the goal of solve our problem. That probably are different to each other in the countries. Some of our problems are regional, emerging markets. Some of them are by regions, like Latin America or Middle East or Africa or Southeast Asia. But I think that will be our main goal, and that's what we're doing in Dapper, at least, trying to solve a problem that nobody else was working before us.
So I would like to add something to that as a concluding note. So today, I mean, our companies, we serve 200 million users a year and collect approximately 11 billion data points per day. And if we now want to go the lazy approach and just share our data with the foundational models that are closed source, then it's the sure way of giving out the gold that AI lives off, which basically means a sure way of being replaced anytime soon. So if I had one recommendation for governments and also for the entrepreneurs, don't take the lazy approach. It took us 1 year to create systems that don't have to share the data that is valuable, but still able to use closed source on top of open source systems. And if we are not careful, then we will give them something that they don't have. That is our local data. Everything else they have. So once we give that out, data creates knowledge, and knowledge creates companies. They might replace you.
So it's clear that the future of the global economy is not going to be written by traditional power centers. Saygin.
Look, I think here in the region we have been the first outside the US to really embrace AI and data centers, because I believe we have realized that how important it is to have it here. It's maybe our chance for the first time in tech to be leaders. And it's very expensive, as you can see. It's interesting, like a lot of money that goes into these technologies, they actually come from the region. Maybe they should also stay in the region. And I think we are building something. I don't want to mention names, but there are great partners that are going to talk soon that are going to tell you how much the country is already investing into these systems.
So it's fascinating that the question is perhaps no longer whether emerging markets will still shape the future. It is perhaps now that how quickly the rest of the world will be adapting itself to what is the new technology area, which is being, perhaps both of you represent that. Thank you to both of you, and thank you for listening to this conversation.